Hello, my name is HQ of HQ Reacts. Welcome to my channel. Please do me a favor. Hit the like button, share the stream, and click the notification button for new content. Thank you.
Now, the first senior government official to face charges in one of President Trump's biggest grievances, the 2016 Russia investigation. Comey is charged with giving a false statement and obstruction of a congressional proceeding relating to the testimony he gave before the Senate Judiciary Committee 5 years ago. This indictment comes just days after the president publicly demanded it, and shortly after the person the president had picked to be the U.S. attorney in this office quit. And the new U.S. attorney, 3 days into that job, did what the president had wanted to happen only 5 days before the statute of limitations was set to run out. Tonight, the president is celebrating, writing in all caps on Truth Social, quote, "Justice in America. One of the worst human beings this country has ever exposed to is James Comey, the former corrupt head of the FBI. Today, he was indicted by a grand jury on 2 felony counts for various illegal and unlawful acts. He has been so bad for our country for so long and is now at the beginning of being held responsible for his crimes against our nation." The president ended his post with "Make America Great Again." It comes just days after the president publicly demanded it, and shortly after the person the president had picked to be the U.S. attorney in this office quit. And the new U.S. attorney, 3 days into that job, did what the president had wanted to happen only 5 days before the statute of limitations was set to run out. Tonight, the president is celebrating, writing in all caps on Truth Social, quote, "Justice in America. One of the worst human beings this country has ever exposed to is James Comey."
Now that's what we have. This is where we at. We have an inexperienced president. We have an inexperienced DOJ putting charges on an experienced FBI agent. And this is the degradation this country has to face yet again. Comey is charged with those 2 counts. James Comey was a FBI director from 2013 to 2017, and he was appointed by President Obama. Okay, federal prosecutor first, deputy attorney general, and he handled major crime cases, right? Specifically cybersecurity, I think it was cybersecurity and counter terrorism. Now, Comey is mostly known for the fact that he came out during the election season between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and was handling an investigation about Clinton using a private email server as the Secretary of State, right? And the FBI investigated this, whether she mishandled classified information. And this is how people got to know who come, because most people don't know who an FBI director is. You know, if you're not really paying attention, we don't pay attention to that, because I didn't know who he was until after that. Okay. So during the election season, 9 times out of 10, there is no investigations during election season. They try not to come out and be partisan in their job, you know, when there's election season. But Comey came out. He came out and he, excuse me, he came out with an investigation against Hillary Clinton, an email server. So he held a press conference. I think it was 2016. He held a press conference, and he said that there was no new evidence to be found against Hillary Clinton, and the case was closed against her and the email server. Okay. He reopened the case to make sure that the emails that were found on a employee's laptop were relevant in any way, and found that they weren't relevant. And so he closed the case against Hillary Clinton. Some people believe that this coming out FBI against FBI norms of him coming out and making a public statement damaged Hillary Clinton's chances in the political arena. I think it was like 5 days before. Could have been 11 days. Yeah, 11 days before. And he sent a letter to Congress as well, knowing that it would leak, and it damaged Clinton's political aspirations. So she ended up losing, right? But there was nothing new with the server. There was nothing new that came out against Hillary Clinton. So it was not even necessary to come out. Or him to come out and do what he did, but he did it anyway. But this changed the direction of the election. And he later, in his, I guess, maybe some of his writings said that he agonized over whether he wanted to come out or not. So here we are in the Trump presidency, early in the Trump presidency. Comey is still, I think you have the appointment for about 10 years as the FBI director. I'm not sure. 10 years, don't quote me on it, but I think it's 10 years. You get appointed. So he got appointed by Obama in 2013. So he should have been working up until the FBI director until 2023. So he meets with Comey after the 2016 election. Trump asks Comey for loyalty. Automatically, Comey, being the FBI guy that he is, the straight up and down guy that he is, the very straightforward guy that he is, recognizes that Trump is less than honest, less than an honest broker when it came to being a president. So Comey would often write extemporaneous, I hate that word, write notes after he visited with Trump, because he wanted to document everything when he dealt with Trump. And when he initially met with Trump, Trump asked him to be loyal. These are in the records, the notes that Comey wrote. He said, and at this particular time, Michael Flynn, who God only knows is psychopath, psychopath, some kind of weirdo, somebody, he was under investigation. So Trump wanted Comey to let Michael Flynn, the matter of Michael Flynn and what he was under investigation for, let that go. And Comey, being the upstanding guy that he was like, no, I'm not, letting it go. Or he didn't say he wasn't going to let it go. He just didn't let it go, right? Because he knew that Michael Flynn had done something illegal. So why did this matter? Comey felt Trump was trying to influence an active investigation against Michael Flynn. Okay. Michael Flynn was a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General. Okay. Headed the Defense Intelligence Agency under President Obama. He clashed with other intelligence agencies. The problem is he resigned because he was only in that job. Michael Flynn was only in that job for about a month. I want to say a month. Only in that job for a month. And he spoke Russian. He spoke with some Russian ambassadors before Trump took office. See, you can't make political decisions If you're from another administration, you cannot make political decisions in the middle of another president's tenure. And that's what I think Michael Flynn did. He misled Vice President Pence and the FBI about the conversations that he had with the Russians. And so therefore he was charged for lying to the FBI about his contacts with Russia. Okay? Some kind of statute, federal statute, 18 U.C. 1001, something like that. He pled guilty twice in 2017, 2018. Okay? Under Donald Trump, he wanted the case to be dropped. Under General Barr. That piece of shit. Barr. Eventually, Trump pardoned Flynn. After the pardon, his conviction was wiped away. So, but he had many flaws in this person's, let's say, personality. Okay? Many flaws in this person's personality. But so, Comey wanted Trump, at the time, Trump wanted Comey to drop the investigation against Michael Flynn. So Trump wanted loyalty from Comey. So he wanted to have influence in federal investigation. I'm hoping that people understand that that the president should not have influence on investigations. I hope that's very clear to people, that you're not supposed to have any kind of investigations against you're not supposed to have any kind of influence as a president against any kind of investigations. I hope that's clear to people, right? Because a lot of people don't seem to understand that this is highly unusual, what is going on in the Trump administration. All of these things that happen in the Trump administration, him ordering Bondi to do this, him ordering Kash Patel to do that, that's highly unusual. Those are supposed to be nonpartisan positions. They're not supposed to be influenced by the president whatsoever. And most presidents take the opportunity not to appear partisan with any of their proceedings. So this is highly unusual, for one thing, which is what has gotten Donald Trump into trouble and into, hot water with most of the country, or most of the regular, normal, constitutional country, because of what he has been doing. So, anyway, Comey said, I will be honestly loyal. He tried to pull Comey into a personal loyalty relationship like an employee. And the FBI director is supposed to be independent. So Comey starts to document all of his meetings with Donald Trump. Okay. So the FBI was already investigating Russian contacts with Trump associates. There were already grumblings of when Trump was running, that there were Russian collusion. There was Russian information going out, that they were influencing campaigns and things like that. Okay. And so this Russian probe later on expanded into what become the Mueller investigation. Okay. And Michael Flynn had undisclosed contacts with Russia. So that's corruption around the board. So Comey comes in and says he's going to be honestly loyal. That's not good enough for Trump. What led to Comey's firing? Comey got fired on May 2017. The official reason was that he mishandled the Clinton email investigation. The actual reason, based on Trump's own statements, was he fired Comey because of the Russian stuff. Comey's refusal to drop the Flynn investigation was another reason, and Comey agreed not to be loyal, which was not Comey's job to be loyal. Okay. The impact was, and Trump was stepping all over in doo-doo in his first term. The Congress was just outraged, but they were a Republican Congress, and Republican Congresses never pushed back on their president. They just let their president do whatever. And there was concerns for obstruction of justice. And then they appointed the special counsel called Robert Mueller, who investigated the Russia probe. And we have yet to really see all of those things, but we do know that Russia did some interesting things behind the scenes. So Comey, his personal reflections about everything in his reflections in his book, he felt pressured by Trump. He believed Trump was more of a mafia boss instead of a president, and he stood by his Clinton decisions. Okay, and he felt like the rule of law was going to be lost under Donald Trump. So he tried to protect whatever he tried to protect when he was there. So he was charged because Donald Trump wanted him charged. So he got charged. He got charged this year. Comey leaked classified information is one of the charges, that he leaked classified information. Okay. Well, these were the arguments made against Comey, that that he leaked classified information, and Clinton should have been charged. She had poor judgment, but she wasn't. It wasn't illegal. Comey helped Hillary, but he didn't, and he ran a partisan FBI. And the fact that he takes extemporaneous notes for every occasion that he had with Trump and any other important official would kind of tell you that he was not trying to be partisan in any way. Okay. So he clashed over Trump about his independence, about the independence of the FBI. And this is how Comey ended up being on the hot seat, because he wasn't going to listen to what Trump had to say. Okay. September, Comey was indicted by the federal grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia on 2 counts, making false statements to Congress and obstructing a congressional proceeding. He pleaded not guilty, of course. What's now in dispute, the final version of the indictments used to charge Comey was not shown to the full grand jury. But let's listen to this tape. Let's listen to what's going on, current proceedings with this weird stuff that's going on.
Events that they should have seen coming for Trump, his DOJ, and especially Lindsey Halligan. If your name is Lindsey Halligan right now, you need to be very nervous about what just went down.
Lindsey Halligan is the lawyer that was got appointed by Trump. Initially, nobody wanted to charge Comey because they didn't see anything. They didn't see what he did wrong. But Trump found someone to prosecute. Her name was Lily Halligan. She was an insurance lawyer. So she's representing the lawyer that's prosecuting Comey. So here we are.
This morning, because your bar license and perhaps even more is on the line right now after these findings.
Her bar license, Halligan's bar license, Pam Bondi's bar license are all on the line because of this misstep that they made this week in the court. When you have clowns running your country, you're going to have clown shit. This is where we are.
A federal magistrate judge, Judge Fitzpatrick, found that there was likely massive grand jury misconduct that led to the indictment of James Comey. Judge Fitzpatrick talks about how Lindsay Halligan, who was alone in the room with the grand jury, likely gave the grand jury false information about the law on at least 2 different critical legal instructions. She just lied about the law, it seems. Also, the Judge Fitzpatrick, does not believe Lindsay Halligan that she provided the full grand jury transcripts. The judge says that's impossible because initially the grand jury did not return an indictment when there were 3 counts listed. So you had to go back, Halligan, print out a copy of the indictment with 2 counts, and then represent it to the grand jury, and that is missing. Where did that go? So when you've said you've turned it over and you filed the declaration, Judge Fitzpatrick is not buying it. Judge Fitzpatrick has ordered an extraordinary remedy of turning over the grand jury materials at this early stage, pre-trial, to James Comey and James Comey's lawyer. That only happens in the most extraordinary of circumstances. And Judge Fitzpatrick says, based on these specific findings that I'm making, this satisfies those extraordinary circumstances where grand jury testimony should be turned over and grand jury material needs to be turned over to James Comey and James Comey's lawyers. Now, we know Lindsay Halligan was never a federal prosecutor before. She was not a trial lawyer. She was a beauty pageant contestant turned insurance lawyer who Trump brought on to be a personal lawyer. And then right before the statute of limitations was about to expire in the James Comey case, Donald Trump posted that message on social media saying, Pam Bondi, tell Lindsay Halligan to go and bring this indictment against my political enemies, James Comey, New York Attorney General Letitia James, Adam Schiff, and others. Lindsay Halligan obliged. The Trump regime forced out the Republican United States attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia. Halligan took over that role, again, having no federal prosecutorial experience, having never been in a grand jury room before. And then you'll recall that right here on the MeidasTouch network, I was saying over and over again, go back to the videos from when that indictment was first secured. I said, I guarantee you she was giving the grand jury incorrect information about the law and incorrect facts, and that there was misconduct in the grand jury, because there's a reason why no other federal prosecutor would bring this case, including Republican federal prosecutors. One other thing that the judge points out as well about how these grand jury proceedings were tainted with misconduct. Apparently, the FBI agent who was the only person who testified in the room to the grand jury, his testimony may have been based on attorney-client privileged information between James Comey and his lawyer, Daniel Richman, or another lawyer of his, Daniel Richman, to form the basis of the presentation, which is against the law to do that, to invade attorney-client privilege without the filter protocols in place. And the judge suggests that that was willful and malicious and intentionally done. And there was multiple misrepresentations potentially made to the grand jury to secure this indictment of James Comey. This ruling is so extraordinary. I want to go through it with you in a very methodical way so you can hear the words of Judge Fitzpatrick, the magistrate judge who made this extraordinary order. Government, turn over all of the grand jury material, including testimony, to James Comey and James Comey's lawyers. So let's take a look at Lindsay Halligan potentially giving false instructions to the jury about the law. Here's what the judge says. The prosecutor's statement that, and this portion gets redacted, is a fundamental and highly prejudicial misstatement of the law that suggests to the grand jury that Mr. Comey does not have a Fifth Amendment right not to testify at trial. The prosecutor's statement ignores the foundational rule of law that if Mr. Comey exercised his right not to testify, the jury could draw no negative inferences from the decision. The prosecutor's statement that, and then this portion gets redacted, may have reasonably set an expectation in the minds of the grand jurors that rather than the government bear the burden to prove Mr. Comey's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt at trial, the burden shifts to Mr. Comey to explain away the government's evidence. In other words, did Lindsay Halligan essentially imply, we may not have all of the information right now, but we don't have to have it right now. James Comey can rebut the evidence at trial if he wants, but the burden is on Comey, which is an absolutely false statement of the law. Second, Judge Fitzpatrick says, the prosecutor told the grand jury that there was, and this portion gets redacted, this statement clearly suggested to the grand jury that they did not have to rely only on the record before them to determine probable cause, but could be assured that the government had more evidence, perhaps better evidence, that would be presented at trial. In other words, the grand jury was skeptical that the evidence that was being presented was enough to indict James Comey. But it seems that Lindsay Halligan said, basically, all you have to do is believe us that in the future we have better evidence. We don't need to show you all the evidence right now. This is all we've got. So just trust us that there's probable cause in the future, which is a misstatement of law. So the judge, having read this, says this is completely not what the law is. You're not allowed to tell a grand jury that. You need to show this to James Comey and his lawyers so that they now can use it in a motion to dismiss based on grand jury misconduct as a result of what Lindsay Halligan did right here. One of the things that the judge also talks about is the disclosure of privileged information from Daniel Richman, Comey's former lawyer, and basically the main person that the prosecution is claiming that James Comey gave information to go to the press back in 2017 or 2016, and then Comey lied to the Senate is the argument about not telling people to go to the press, is Comey's own former lawyer and friend Daniel Richman, a Columbia law professor.
It's a shit show. It's a shit show. It's ridiculous. The indictments are ridiculous. Comey did absolutely nothing wrong. And that is what the judge is saying. The judge is saying, this is garbage. Why did you bring garbage to the court? Why did you bring this to the court when this is obviously a witch hunt? This is obviously something that you all spooned together, put together. Comey was probably one of the most upstanding guys in the FBI. One of the most straight and narrow guys in the FBI. Not to mention, other people that were working there, but Comey was definitely one. The problem here is that Trump wanted Comey to bend to his will, and Comey wouldn't bend to his will because you're not supposed to be partisan when you work in the FBI. You're not supposed to do anything, any bidding of the president. The president just doesn't get to tell you to go and put charges on another person, and then you just go and put charges on that person, especially if you work in the FBI or the DOJ. You just don't do that. In all of the years, mostly the DOJ, the FBI, they have been nonpartisan. Donald Trump is the most corrupt president that we have ever had. So Comey, as I stated, Comey kept detailed records of what his interactions with Trump were. He kept detailed records because he knew instantly that this was a corrupt president. He knew instantly from his behavior. Most of us knew that he was a corrupt president, but we got to let the goofy clown car vote. So we got to let goofies vote. So goofies vote, and this is what happened, right? So Trump, Comey, having been in the FBI as long as he had seen many things. So he kept notes. So he kept notes of all of these things. None of those people have been indicted. It's most good. So stop it. None of those people have been reached to the level of being indicted. Stop it. So This is where he is, and this is why this case with Comey is falling apart. For one, the lady doesn't have experience. For two, you're supposed to be appointed into that job. For three, she made mistake after mistake, and people overlooked it. Now this judge is not overlooking it, and you're going to be the laughing stock of the Trump administration behind Bondi, and then Bondi may lose her law license too, because Comey can turn around and sue, and you all can lose your license.
Just think about it like this. The two witnesses who the prosecutors claim support, who the prosecutors claim would support their claim against Comey. One was Andrew McCabe, who's been here on the MeidasTouch network.
These are the witnesses that they say they have against Comey, which they don't. Makes no sense. But these are the two witnesses that he is describing. The two witnesses that they have against Comey.
And he said, Comey never instructed me to go to the press. He didn't have to. He didn't have to authorize me. I did it on my own. So that can't form the basis. The other is Comey's own personal lawyer, Daniel Richman. And Richman says Comey never authorized me.
The difference is, Goofy Osmos God, this is not a personal vendetta. These are not personal vendettas. When people go after those people, those are not personal vendettas. Biden is not in the White House. Biden is not going up against Elon for a personal vendetta. This is because they did something, not a personal vendetta. This Comey, again, from Donald Trump, is a personal vendetta. Okay, that's the difference.
Me to go to the press, but Richmond was also Comey's own personal lawyer, and the information between them is attorney-client privilege that can't be invaded by the government in this fashion. So what the court says here is the nature and circumstances surrounding the disclosure of potentially privileged information established a reasonable basis to question whether the government's conduct was willful or in reckless disregard of the law. This is particularly significant because Agent 3, that's the only FBI agent to testify, after having been exposed to potentially privileged information, chose to testify before the grand jury rather than separate himself from the investigation to contain any further exposure to privileged information and limit any prejudice to Mr. Comey. The judge goes on to talk about how, as discussed above, the prosecutor made statements to the grand juries that could reasonably form the basis for the defense to challenge whether the grand jury proceedings were infected with constitutional error, and the grand jury transcript and recording likely do not reflect the full proceedings because, although it is clear that a second indictment was prepared and presented to the grand jury, the transcript and audio recording of the proceedings do not reflect any further communication after the grand jury began deliberating on the first indictment. So do you get that point there? The grand jury received 2 indictments. And again, this is not what's supposed to happen. They usually get 1 indictment.
This episode of the MeidasTouch podcast is brought to you by Graza. Everyone knows I love to cook for my friends, and what's taken my food and squeeze or glass bottles. They're great on the countertop. And you will get code Meidas, MEIDAS.
So at first, the grand jury was given a 3-count indictment. They rejected that. Then Lindsay Halligan went back, printed out another version and said, okay, let's try this one, a 2-count indictment. The recordings and transcripts stop after the first one. So what happened with the second indictment? Do you get what I'm saying? So that's why the judge says clearly there is missing grand jury testimony because you presented 2 indictments to this grand jury. And just so if you're confused, why would she present 2? They're not supposed to. They're just supposed to do 1. And if the grand jury doesn't indict on certain counts, those counts are removed. You don't keep printing out extra indictments. But that's why we know that that's why Judge Curry, also a separate judge in the disqualification of Lindsay Halligan proceedings, believed that there was missing grand jury testimony, because where would it be presented? The second indictment, where would that be presented? Here's the conclusion from Judge Fitzpatrick, this magistrate judge. The court recognizes that the relief sought by defense is rarely granted by Comey. It's rarely granted that you get grand jury testimony at this stage and grand jury materials. Well, if you go, well, Ben, when do you get it? The only time you actually get the grand jury materials, if you're the criminal defendant, is if the witness, the witness who testified in the grand jury, in this case, FBI Agent 3 is how he's being described. If that agent testifies at the actual trial, right before he testifies, you basically make a motion, we want to get the grand jury testimony to cross-examine him, and then you get the testimony just as it relates to that agent or that witness to cross-examine that witness if they testify at trial. Otherwise, you really don't get this, and the public doesn't see it, and nobody sees it because it relies on prosecutors who are supposed to be skilled and ethical going through this process the right way. And it should be noted, too, just in case you're confused, in our grand jury system, the judge is not in the room. The defendant is not in the room. The only people in the room are the prosecutors. There's usually multiple, it's usually a team, and the grand jury. That's it. In this case, it was just Lindsay Halligan. She didn't come with the team and the grand jury. So now we're seeing and she's never done that in her life before. And now we're seeing that this whole proceeding was likely tainted with lies, false instructions about the law, and misconduct. So it goes, the court recognizes that the relief sought by defense is rarely granted. However, the record points to a disturbing pattern of profound investigative missteps that led an FBI agent and a prosecutor to potentially undermine the integrity of the grand jury proceeding. Therefore, in this case, the court has before it a rare example of a criminal defendant who can actually make a particularized and factually based showing that grounds exist to support the proposition that irregularities may have occurred in the grand jury proceedings and may justify the dismissal of one or more counts of the indictment. Signed, Judge Fitzpatrick, right there. And just so you can read the intro, this matter is before the court to address the narrow issue of whether there is a particular and factually based grounds to justify the disclosure of these grand jury materials. And the court says, absolutely, there is right here. I could just also go through with you on page 15, the statements of the prosecutor to the grand jury. Let me just go through this with you one more time right here. Having been requested by the government to review the grand jury materials, the court has identified two statements by the prosecutors to the grand jury that on their face appear to be fundamental misstatements of the law that could compromise the integrity of the grand jury process. Both statements by the prosecutors are in response to questions by grand jurors and are directly related to communications involving Mr. Comey. Then it goes, first, after having advised the grand jury that the prosecutor was their legal advisor, the prosecutor stated blank. The prosecutor's statement that blank is a fundamentally and highly prejudicial statement of the law that suggests to the grand jury that Mr. Comey does not have a Fifth Amendment right to testify at trial. The prosecutor's statement ignores the foundational rule of law that if Mr. Comey exercised his right not to testify, the jury could draw no negative inferences.
So he probably gonna get off. He's probably gonna get off because in any experience of this person, I don't know what Donald Trump was thinking. You just can't put anybody into you can't just put anybody into
Lindsay Halligan
a job and expect him to do the job correctly. She doesn't know what she's doing, nor does she know how to do procedures the correct way. How does she go back and have two different copies, same copies, different stuff, tell somebody a different thing, lie to the grand jury? How does she do all of these things and she's supposed to have experience? You're representing the president. Apparently, I don't know. I don't understand what's going on with this. But then again, as I said, when you follow a clown, you have a clown show.
and just got her butt handed to her by a federal judge. And the James Comey prosecution, the Comey case, is hanging by a thread. And even that single thread is fraying. Let's talk about that, because Justice matters.
Don't be upset. Don't be upset. Your clown car is coming to a screeching halt. Don't be upset. Fragapan Boo. Don't be upset. MAGA Zombie. Don't be upset.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Prosecutor's Verdict. You know, my friend.
No, we know for a fact that every administration before this one has been better than this one. The wheels are coming off. The wheels are coming off. Y'all, you MAGAs just gotta accept it. It is what it is.
Kevin Flynn, 35-year federal prosecutor at the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. Together, we try to bring to bear our.
Wait a minute. I wanna see this. This is what I forgot. I forgot this one thing. People weren't here for this. I wanted to see this. What the hell happened to the lady? Somebody just mentioned her. What did the lady do?
Now to the distinguished gentlelady from Virgin Islands, Representative Plaskett.
Thank you so much to Mr. Raskin, to my former professor in law school, and I want to address the body. I first want to.
I don't know where you get that from, Jeb. Man, you live in an alternate universe. It's okay. I forgot y'all MAGAs do live in an alternate universe. I keep forgetting that y'all do live in that goofy world. I forget.
Give you all a sense of what was happening that day. Everyone knows at that hearing in February, the entire country was watching. As Michael Cohen decided he was going to finally give up information about what was happening in the Trump world, the Trump enterprise. And at the beginning of that hearing, the ranking member, Jim Jordan, had the disrespect to Elijah Cummings, may he rest in peace and his name be a memory, after not allowing Mr. Jordan to shut the committee hearing down. And I turned to Mr. Jordan and told him to have respect for the chair and to basically shut up. And that moment went viral. And I began to get innumerable texts from friends, from foes, from constituents about what was happening in that hearing. And I got a text from Jeffrey Epstein, who at the time was my constituent, who was not public knowledge at that time. That he was under federal investigation.
I think you're lying, ma'am. I think you texted Jeffrey Epstein at 7:20 a.m. So if you texted him at 7:20 a.m., who were all of these people texting you, and why did you text him? I think you're lying.
Who was sharing information with me. Now, I heard recently from someone that I was seeking advice from him. Let me tell you something. I don't need to get advice on how to question anybody from any individual. I have been a lawyer for 30 years. I have been a narcotics prosecutor in New York City. I have had the honor of being a political appointee at the Justice Department after September 11th as a Republican appointee in the Bush administration. I know how to question individuals. I know how to seek information. I have sought information from confidential informants, from murderers, from other individuals, because I want the truth, not because I need them to tell me what to say. And if you look at the transcript, you will see that I questioned Michael Cohen for 5 minutes. The Washington Post only shows you 30 seconds and takes from it one individual's name that I got from Jeffrey Epstein and didn't know who the individual was, and put that individual with a host of other individuals that I felt the committee should subpoena. They've never been subpoenaed. They've never been questioned. Because at the end of the day, I know that in the Trump administration and with my colleagues over there, it's not about sexual assault. It's not about support of victims. It's about money. It is about money. I have consistently stood against sexual violence and the exploitation of women and children in previous careers, as well as here in this body. We all know that Jeffrey Epstein's actions were absolutely reprehensible. As a constituent, as an individual who gave donations to me, when I learned of the extent of his actions after his investigation, I gave that money to women's organizations in my community. Not back to him, but to women in the community who needed that support. That's what I think should have been done, and that's what I did. They've taken a text exchange which shows no participation, no assistance, no involvement in any illegal activity, and weaponized it for political theater, because that's what this is. This has been reviewed by federal courts. Any charges, victims who initially had a case against me dismissed it on their own without prejudice. You don't want to talk about what is really happening here. Your attacks on working families, your protection of powerful predators and corporate criminals. You want to talk about texting felons. How often do you text President Donald J. Trump? That's the individual we should be concerned about. And let me tell you this. I am not going to support the wealthy and connected who continue to exploit workers and evade taxes, powerful figures with credible allegations who face no consequences, and corporate interests profiting from human suffering while families struggle. And let me tell the people of the Virgin Islands.
Gentleman will state his point of order.
The point of order is you may not call the President of the United States a felon. That is a violation.
Point of order is under consideration, and we're not going to lose order here either, so please.
May I continue? May I continue, Mr.
Members
Speaker?
are, however, reminded to refrain, as mentioned a little while ago, from making personality commentary towards the president. The point of order is not timely, so the gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What is happening here? I feel sorry for my colleagues. I feel sorry for this body. I see members coming and speaking against me who I've never even had a conversation with. You don't know me. You don't know the work that I've done. You don't know the support that I've given to families, to individuals, to support people. I worked a full-time job with children under the age of 5, going to school, law school at night. Do you think I would risk my law degree for any individual? Never mind a reprehensible individual by Jeffrey Epstein, I would not. But what I'm about is the truth. And let me tell the people of the Virgin Islands, this attempt at intimidation will pass. We in the Virgin Islands do not back down from a fight. That is how we won our freedom, and that is how we will continue to grow our equality. And if you censure me, take away a committee, I will still do the work because I am here to support people and to support this great Constitution, which I have sworn numerous times to uphold.
I don't know how they got, what they tried. So they tried to censor this lady because apparently she knew Donald Trump, she knew Epstein at some point. So they tried to put her under fire. I don't know how or why they tried to put her under fire, but she received a text, or she texted Jeffrey Epstein.
Mr. Speaker, my House Resolution 888, censoring and condemning Delegate Stacey Plaskett and removing her from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence for conduct that reflects the discredibility on the House of Representatives for colluding with convicted felon and offender Jeffrey Epstein during a congressional hearing. Whereas Stacey Plaskett, the delegate representing the United States Virgin Islands in the House of Representatives, inappropriately coordinated in real time with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in a congressional hearing in February of 2019. Whereas Delegate Plaskett was actively coached by Epstein during the hearing, receiving instructions on specific lines of questioning, and was congratulated after the message by Mr. Epstein, good work. Whereas Jeffrey Epstein, the Speaker of the House is not in order.
The gentleman has the floor. The chair would again ask the body to please observe decorum and keep conversations to a minimum. The gentleman has the floor.
Whereas Jeffrey Epstein was a known convicted felony sex offender, having pled guilty and been convicted for procuring a child for prostitution and solicitation, a proselyte in a plea deal in 2008, and served a 13-month prison sentence. Whereas in the course of that investigation, the FBI compiled reports on dozens of confirmed minors who credibly alleged sexual abuse by Mr. Epstein. Whereas Epstein was under further federal investigation beginning in November of 2018, 2 months before Delegate Plaskett's recently revealed text exchange during a congressional hearing, following investigative reporting by the Miami Herald detailing Epstein's controversial 2008 plea deal and highlighting accounts of his victims. Whereas Epstein was arrested in July of 2019 and charged with 1 count of sex trafficking of minors and 1 count of conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors, he was later found dead in the New York Metropolitan Correctional Center. Whereas according to documents released from Epstein's estate during a House Committee on Oversight and Reform hearing featuring testimony from Michael Cohen, the disgraced former attorney for President Donald J. Trump, Delegate Plaskett coordinated her line of questioning with Jeffrey Epstein in real time over text messages while the hearing was underway. Whereas Delegate Plaskett, who previously served as an assistant attorney general in the United States Department of Justice Civil Division, is known to have had extensive political, personal, and professional connections with Epstein after his conviction as a sex offender up to the time of his arrest and then his death in 2019. Whereas Delegate Plaskett's relationship with Epstein stands in stark contrast to the public image that she has curated for herself as a defender of justice and accountability, and while secretly collaborating with an individual whose crimes against vulnerable women and children shocked the entire nation.
Her name is Pleasant. She was censored today, or they tried to censor her today against her getting text messages from the lady that was talking. She received text messages from Jeffrey Epstein during a 2019 congressional hearing. She apparently exchanged text messages with Epstein, and I think she initiated one of the text messages. And so the House tried to censor her today. And this is not it was not criminal indictment. It was a formal criminal indictment. It was just a allegation of an ethics misconduct, and it would have been able to strip her of her committees, her chairs, and all of those kind of things. It could have stripped her. And so she was from the Virgin Islands, and so they never did have enough people to actually kick her off of any of the committees. They never had any kind of power to do that because most people didn't believe, I guess, the information. So she still has her chairs, her committees. She still has all of those things. So hold on. We got one more.
Through the results from those 2025 elections in New Jersey and Virginia. And one of the big questions that has been asked is, where are Latino voters? A Latino voting shift toward Donald Trump in 2024 helped propel him to victory. So what do the results in New Jersey and Virginia show us now? What might it tell us about what U.S. opinions are on the president's immigration policy? With us now, CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton. Harry, a lot going on constantly on the issue of immigration and immigration crackdowns. The Latino vote, what are we seeing among the polls there?
Yeah, what are we seeing? You know, one of the big shifts in 2024 from 2020 was that shift towards Donald Trump, right? Immigration played a key role in that. I want to start off with Latinos on Trump and immigration. You know, back a year ago, what did we see on the issue of immigration? Latino voters trusted Kamala Harris more than Donald Trump, but by just 2 points. 1, 2. Look now at Donald Trump's net approval rating on immigration among Latinos. He is 38 points underwater. That is a 36-point shift, essentially, from where we were a year ago on immigration. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are basically tied on the issue of immigration. And now on the issue of immigration, Latinos despise, hate Donald Trump. 38 points underwater. In their mind, he is doing something absolutely wrong when it comes to immigration.
What about the Latino vote overall?
What about the Latino vote overall? All right, how do Latinos feel about Donald Trump overall? Let's take a look here. This, I think, sort of gives the game away.
Goodness.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I mean, that is the phrase of the day. Trump's net approval rating among Latinos. In early February, again, he was just 2 points underwater. Look at where he is now. Late October, minus 34 points, 34 points underwater, a shift of 32 points over the course of this year. I should point out this is the CBS News YouGov poll, but I was looking at the average of polls. I was looking at our own poll. Very similar shift, 20, 25, 30-point shifts on the net approval rating away from Donald Trump among Latinos overall. Again, whatever Donald Trump is doing in office, in the minds of Latinos, it is not working. They have turned against him in massive, massive numbers.
I was in New Jersey a couple weeks ago on election night there. People were watching certain counties with high Latino populations very closely. What did we learn?
Yeah, what did we learn from the 2025 elections? I took the highest Latino percentage area in both New Jersey and Virginia. New Jersey, it was Union City. Look at this, 2024 president, 2025 governorship. There was a 52, I'm laughing because you never see any numbers like this, a 52-point shift towards Mikey Sherrill from how Kamala Harris did on the margin. Mikey Sherrill ran away with this. Kamala Harris did win that vote, but by a small margin. Mikey Sherrill did 52 points better. How about in Virginia, Manassas Park?
He's laughing because that shit is so unbelievable. He's laughing because the shit is so unbelievable that Donald Trump has alienated the country so freaking easy and so freaking fast. There's no turnaround here. I keep telling the MAGA people, y'all got to do something if you're going to go down spectacularly. This is going to be one of the worst. People figured out really, really early from the policies that this president has put into place that they do not want what he is trying to sell. They have turned against him massively. This is Latinos and independents. And these are the people that he has to depend on in order to win elections. He is spectacularly underwater. I mean, just to that's why it's not funny. It's not funny because I hate for a president to fail like this. But this is a failure. When you continue to do shit over and over again, and people say they do not want it, but you continue to do it. Yes, that's why we had the rallies. No kings.
Today's video. Today is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about a brand new poll from Marist University showing the Democratic Party with a massive 14-point lead nationwide over the Republicans going into the next year of the 2026 midterm elections. This brand new polls from Marist University throws everything awry when it comes down to how we've understood our generic ballot numbers for quite some time. This 14-point lead is absolutely massive, and one that does show the Democratic Party is arguably in a tremendously good position going into the next midterms, as they are set to take place over the coming weeks and months through primaries and, of course, the inevitable general election in November of 2026. Now, this number is one that jumps out. I usually don't make videos talking,
and we must state that we don't have a message, and we don't even have a leader of the party. Our party is shit and in shambles. The Democratic Party is in shit and is in shambles, and they still beating generically. They're still kicking the shit out of the Republicans because the Republicans are hated so much, because Trump is hated so much. We don't even have a leader. We don't even have a message. We don't even have a cohesive anything. And they hate the Republicans just that goddamn much.
Talking about individual polls on the generic ballot front. I generally am talking about trend lines that we are seeing.
It doesn't matter whether it's today or not. Y'all got a long way. Donald Trump is still in office. Like y'all keep trying to remind me, he's still our president. He's still going to be around doing this bullshit that he's been doing. He's going to continue to do the bullshit that he's been doing. And the Epstein files haven't even come out. This is wild. This is wild. The Epstein files hasn't even come out. And they underwater like this. They running away from the Republican Party like this. Because y'all don't stand for nothing. Y'all don't have a message. You don't fight for the common man. You don't fight for immigrants. You don't fight for brown people. You don't fight for black people. You don't fight for anybody. Because you don't stand for anything. There's nothing to hold on to. There's no reason to be over there. And that's what people found. People found there was no reason to be over in the Republican Party. Excuse me. Because Trump does everything for Trump. He does nothing for the common man. He gets on TV and he spends money after money after money. He gets us into wars after wars after wars. He has Epstein file. We don't know what is coming from one day to the next. Nobody wants what the Republicans are trying to sell. Okay? Nobody wants. We don't. When Democrats ain't regretting nothing. Trump is if you don't, dude, come on. Trump is underwater. Come on. Trump is underwater. His poll numbers are 37%. Stop it. No, you're the dumbass. You're the dumbass. You're the zombie.
The overall average, how the presidential approval rating plays into it, how perception around
you don't have to
Jeffries
believe
and
me.
Chuck Schumer
You don't have to believe me. You just go look up the polls. You don't have to believe me. You ain't got to say shit. The Democrats ain't got shit. They ain't got no message. They ain't got no leader. They ain't got nothing. But they know the world, the United States know they can't stand the Republican Party. They do know that one fact. They do know that one damn fact.
Plays into it. And all of these things obviously matter, but very rarely am I actually breaking down a substantive enough number point that says that this data from Marist University is so important that we need to talk about it, because this number.
Yeah, that makes real sense, Chuck Norris. Nobody walked into the place and said anything about race except you, zombie.
Is astronomical. Now, to give you a bit of context of this data that they've released, this is the first general election poll that they've released of the cycle. They are showing Democrats with an astonishing 14-point advantage at 55% support nationwide. Republicans, on the other hand, are at just 41%. And they call back to the last time they did this survey back in November of 2024, when they found that the American public was roughly evenly divided. 48% to 48%, Republicans would go on to win that
Good thing, Chuck. Good
popular
thing.
vote by roughly 3 percentage points. And so the reason why,
Yeah, sure.
I think it's worth noting
Sure
is
they
one,
are.
yes, Marist University
Sure
in
they are.
2024 did underestimate Republican support by roughly 3 points. But even applying that to the data that they've released today really goes to show that an 11-point advantage could potentially be the baseline for the Democratic Party. But the last time that Marist University did a poll was in a midterm cycle was in 2022, when they found data that right before the election, when you take a look at it, they joined the same as they do now with the NPR and PBS. They said Republicans would win the national popular vote by roughly 3 points. On election day, Republicans won by 3. And so when you think about exactly what they had foretold in the past, predicted in the past, their data was 100% accurate in 2022. When it came down to 2024, they were only off by 3 points. Being generous to the GOP, if you were to apply both of those shifts, you'd be off by an average of roughly 1.5%. And on the worst case, the upper bounds of a margin of error, which only finds itself to be at around 3.5 points. Meaning that the Republican Party, at least in this sample, in this survey, in this poll, finds itself in a tremendously poor position going into 2026. And it's something that isn't necessarily as shocking coming off the 2025 elections, but absolutely leaves a lot of lessons to be learned for Republicans nationwide. Now, to think back about any time that Democrats even got to the double digits when it came down to this popular vote margin, you have to go back to 2008, an election where Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats won 257 seats on the national stage with 53.2% of the vote. The Marist University poll is saying that Democrats would actually outperform this by roughly 2 points. But remembering back, right now, Democrats have just 215 seats in the United States House of Representatives. In 2008, again, remember that number, Republicans had just 178 and Democrats had 257. This map was arguably more blue than it was red, which is in direct contrast with what you see today, Republicans dominating in many other parts of the country, especially relative to 2008. But the point is that that election, with Democrats winning nationally by 11 points, resulted in Democrats controlling full-on statewide delegations in states that hadn't voted for the Democratic Party in decades, for instances. In states like North Carolina, the Democrats had the advantage here. They won it in the presidential, but this was a massive victory. 2 years later, they would go on to lose it in many of these seats. And then 2 years after that, Republicans would dominate and draw them out of existence.
So you saying all of these red parts are fake? Are you saying all of these red parts that these are fake polls? These are ones where they saying the Republicans won? That this is this fake poll from last year? Was it last year? Yeah. That this is a fake poll? All of these polls are fake? The Republican polls are fake, you saying?
In the state. But taking a look at that...
Hold on. This map is fake? So Donald Trump didn't win like this last year? Is that what you're saying? It can't be true for it. It can't be true for it to be last year, and then you turn around and say it's going to be fake this year. It don't work that way. Either Donald Trump won like he won, or the map is true, or you just projecting that it's a fake map. This is a person that this is a company that keeps accurate data about the statistics. They're saying this is what it was last year when Donald Trump won. So they're telling you how the map is going right now. So don't tell me it's a fake map.
Right? So much more red than there was blue in 2008 because the popular vote circumstances were that dramatically different. In 2010, Republicans won nationally by roughly 6 points, which shows that the comparison between 2010 and 2008 is largely accounted for in that shift when it comes down to the national popular vote. And the generic ballot data at the time was roughly in line with what you saw. When you take a look at the polling, let's see if we can actually get here. I'm sure we can if we go down the rabbit hole of the Real Clear Politics websites. I'm hoping that they pull it up for us. I guess we aren't going to be able to find it for 2008. Unfortunately, maybe when we looked at this data a long time ago, I'm sure we can find it as we continue to go through it. But the point is that, you know, when you take a look at what the generic ballot data had told and said to us about this race, it was that Democrats in 2008 were going to demolish nationwide. They were going to do super well. They were going to be able to win, you know, a number of seats across the country.
And that was in 2008. This poll has predicted the winners of the poll in Donald Trump's time, Obama's time, and Biden's time. So now we're finna see what is going to predict for this next time. And you probably could set your hat by that.
In that their popular vote margin was roughly in line with that of Barack Obama's victory, but Democrats actually outperformed it in the generic
vote. I will, Mike.
And so while I don't think that Marist University is 100% accurate in their data point, I do think they're underestimating Republican support quite a bit. I don't think you're going to see Democrats win by 14 points. I do think, though, that you can find yourself acknowledging that while this might be an outlier, also serves to be that even an acknowledgement that it is an outlier, there still are methodologies that you can trust about this, data that you can trust from it. And while we shouldn't be going out here and saying Democrats are guaranteed to win by a double-digit margin nationwide, it does make it more and more possible in that it is capturing sentiment amongst even groups of voters that find themselves backing the Democrats by such a significant amount. And to make matters better for Marist University, which again probably acknowledges that this is a massive, outlier poll that they are releasing, you can also find too that in some of the data that we just saw released today from Marquette University out of the state of Wisconsin, in their press release, they find that amongst likely voters, Democrats are winning likely voters nationwide by roughly 8 points. And so that difference there certainly is, substantial enough that it shows that while it may not be 14 points, it absolutely is significant enough that it makes a difference and shows that Democrats have the ability to win many of these states and many of these districts in 2026 because of their expansive advantage amongst different groups of voters. And while all registered voters are saying that, they are backing the Democratic Party, of those who say who they are certain to vote, that's the number where the 8-point margin comes in. Actually, it's 9 points here, seemingly. I did the math on that wrong. Oh, no, it's 8 points. No, it's 9 points. I'm arguing with myself, but it's 3 plus 6, so it's 9 points. The point is, though, that you are getting closer and closer to the possibility of a double-digit national popular vote victory, similar to what we saw in 2025 in the elections that took place 2 weeks ago on the national stage. And that would be not just an improvement for Democrats, obviously, relative to 2024, but an overperformance relative to 2018 and potentially something on par with that of 2008. And looking at the amount of seats the Democrats won in 2008, it truly is incomprehensible. And to put it in actual visual terms, this 2008 map is stunning for the Democrats, but the 2024 map is far more red. But let's talk about what it would look like if Republicans were to see that on the national stage, all of a sudden they're,
This is the poll that Donald Trump won. This is his polling. This is last year's polling. So everybody in the chat is saying, no, you can't believe the poll. So we shouldn't believe this poll. These polls are fake. This poll right here was fake. They predict every poll that they put up. They have predicted correctly the polling that has come out. So if they predicted the last 3 pollings that have come out fairly accurately, why wouldn't I believe that they're going to be close to the polling next year? Why wouldn't I believe that? With you all having a catastrophic clown shit of a president and a catastrophic clown shit of a Republican Party. We ain't doing nothing. The Democrats ain't doing nothing. And we winning. That's the fucked up part. And we winning. We ain't doing nothing and we winning. Which ought to tell you they really just fucking can't stand you Republicans. This is Donald Trump's map from last year. Let's see what his predictions are for next year.
Republican +3 national victory is turned into Democrats winning by 14 points. Now, again, need to point this out. This is not my prediction. This is not how I'm saying the race is going to go. I am merely experimenting with what the map would look like under this circumstance, but you would be accounting for a 17-point shift on the national stage. And as seemingly impossible as that seems, when you look back at 2008, for instance, I think this is a great example of just how dynamic American elections can really get. Look at the difference between, blue and red. So much more red across the country. But when it comes down to the national popular vote, when you look at 2008, Democrats won nationally between the two candidates here, between the two parties, by roughly 10.6%. That was, the difference on the national stage. Republicans were at 42.6. Democrats.
I know y'all got to cope. I know that you maggots got to cope because y'all always trying to cope and say some dumb shit. And you've been wrong on every front since you opened your mouth and supported this catastrophic clown y'all call a president. I know y'all got to cope, but sometimes y'all got to get out of the bubble and stop calling people names and stop distracting people. Your president dealt with a pedo. Your president was friends with a pedo. Deal with that. Don't worry about no polls. Don't worry about the polls at all. Deal with the fallout from your president. Deal with the fallout from your president because he's a lame duck right now. He's a lame duck and there's nothing you can do. He has no respect. He needs to get some respect. You all really need to help him come to the realization that he's a lame duck and stop doing bullshit and stop doing dumb shit in the public, right? But we're going to trudge along and we're going to go along with the polls because the polls tell us everything we need to know. That's all I needed to hear was who was it? That's all I needed to hear was the Latinos ran away from Donald Trump. The independents ran away from Donald Trump. Soon as I heard that those two groups ran away from Donald Trump, I was like, yeah, it's over. This is all over. It's over. It's over.
We're at 53.2. That is a 10.6% difference.
Y'all help y'all president. Y'all help y'all president deal with the pedophiles. Y'all just do that.
Nationwide. In 2010, Republicans won the national popular vote, 51.7 to 44.9. Effectively, the difference here is that what you're finding is that there's about a 7-point difference. So averaging it and rounding, you are talking an 18-point swing from 2008 to 2010 on the national level. And that explains why this map goes from so much blue to so much red. And so getting back to this swing, 17 points, would actually be slightly less than that of the Tea Party movement that ushered out Democratic governance and in a new wave of Republicans in Washington, D.C. And so we can take a look. This shift here on the national stage in favor of the Democrats by 17% would end up with Democrats at 263 seats in the House of Representatives. And get this, some of these GOP gerrymanders would be so powerful that they still prohibit Democrats making any more than one gain in Florida, no gains in Georgia, 0 in North Carolina. It is really quite fascinating. Or two, 1 in North Carolina. It really is just so interesting how well these gerrymanders hold up under all of it, because you remember that 2008 map. It's far more blue than you might think, right? So much blue across the board, but still Democrats are getting more seats here. The point is, though, that what you take a look at on this map and what you see in terms of these designated numbers show just how great that advantage would be for Democrats if the Marist University poll was in fact correct. And it would usher in Democrats into a position in many of these districts that would really jeopardize the Republican Party's ability to govern in the final 2 years of Donald Trump's administration. And it arguably...
That's correct. Obama did get slaughtered. He did, Mike. The party in the White House got slaughtered. That's why we know that they're going to lose seats this midterm. That's why we know you're going to lose seats midterm. It's just a matter of how much.
Is what Democrats did in 2006 when they won nationally by roughly 8 points. After 2004, Republicans defeated the Democrats by roughly 3 to 4 points. This in and of itself was about a 10, 11-point swing, which could be what we see in 2026. And this was the year that Democrats were able to cut out Republicans from the House majority. But again, thinking about, just this data point and how it adds into the overall average that we've been working with on the 2026 level, it doesn't skew it too tremendously. After all, Marist is just one poll out of 10 plus that are included in this Real Clear Politics average, but it does tell us a very fascinating story about where the race stands today. That although they may not be 100% accurate, they were in 2022, and it will be of interest to track as we go from point to point. When we look at polls and how they've
No, we just need to know. We just need to know what's going on with this information so we know how to go forward. Okay? We want reality we want reality to sort of hit some of you maggots, because you maggots don't seem to get reality. We're telling you that people don't like the direction that Donald Trump is taking them, and you guys keep telling us that they do. And we're telling you that they don't. And we're telling you that they have went across. As soon as I heard the words alligator Alcatraz, I was like, y'all, the Republicans are cooked. Soon as I heard them two words, alligator Alcatraz, what made you all think having alligator Alcatraz, putting people out there in the middle of swamp? That's wild. That's wild. Mr. One Boston bitch, were you born in Africa? Take your ass back to Africa, bitch. You ain't no native here either. Shut your ass up. Just dumb.
Changed their stances and their positioning for the Democratic Party, it has actually gone on the up and up when it comes down to generic congressional vote. When you take a look at that data from roughly a month ago, at this point, October 19th, 2025, Democrats led by just 1.9%. Today, they lead by 5%. These are real changes that you can see tangibly on the graphic, where you're finding not just a minor bump, but a practical skyrocket in terms of support. That the Democratic Party's margin over the GOP has over doubled in a matter of a month. And while I don't think that you are going to see that pattern continue, after all, in November of 2026, Democrats are not winning nationally by, 500%.
Oh no, we ain't the two sides of the same coin. Democrats are built way different. As I stated, you Republicans, I want to know, somebody put in the chat what Donald Trump has done for the average everyday American making between $30,000 and $150,000. I want to know what the big beautiful bill did for people like that. Somebody give me what he did for the big beautiful bill that helps people who make X, Y, and Z. I just want to know. He cut what taxes, moron?
But you are going to find...
You ain't felt no taxes being cut? What you talking about?
Apologies, I just dropped my pen. But you are going to find that the Democratic Party's margin on the generic congressional vote could very well improve. And this past month alone has been...
And you shouldn't be listening to your husband. Get your ass out of here. Get your ass out of here, Mr. Boston. Get your ass out of here, because you sound dumb as hell.
And a phenomenal example of that. That Democrats that...
That's all they can do is name call and insult. That's all they got. They don't have a party. They have a clown car shit boss, shit president. They just angry. I can't help it. Your president is a jackass. I can't help that. I can't help your president squandered a mandate. I can't help you and your clown car party. He squandered a mandate. How do you squander a mandate? How do you have people turning away from you like this?
Sure, ways ago, we're not doing so well when it came down to how the nation perceived.
No, you shouldn't come in here and call me names. If you don't want me to call you names, don't call me names. I call your clown shit president names. Don't come in here and call me names.
them are finding
But
themselves.
that's all you all do, because you don't stand on anything. That's the problem. They figured out that over there in the Republican Party, you have nothing that you stand on. You don't stand on anything. You don't offer anybody anything. You kick people out of your group if they don't do like you, think like you, act like you. There's nothing that you have that somebody would want to come over and be a Republican for. I did a show yesterday regarding why black folks don't want to be in the Republican Party. The bulk of us are not in the Republican Party. So that's the thing. You have nothing to offer, and nobody can put in the chat. Nobody has put in the chat what Donald Trump has done for a person who makes 30 to 150K. Nobody has done that. Told me what the big, beautiful bill has done for them. Nobody.
Really, really improving, and are finding that even as
they out here caping for these rich folks, caping for the rich man. Wow. And they poor as church mouses.
there is still a large amount of discontent for Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and Democrats across the board on the national stage. A lot.
He don't protect no Christianity. He ain't no Christian. In no way, shape, or form is he a Christian. He hung out with pedophiles. Is that what you telling me? You telling me that a Christian man would be hanging out with pedophiles? Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
A lot of that has to do with the Democratic Party's own base saying that they want younger, more robust, more fighting leadership in Washington, D.C., rather than a disaffected party base that is unwilling to vote. Because every single election we have seen since Donald Trump has taken office has proven to us that Democrats will vote, has proven to us that Democrats are the ones that are paying attention to that random municipal election, that are paying attention to that random county executive race, that are paying attention to that December Tennessee's 7th district congressional race. Because for Democrats, every election, something is on the line. Pushing back against the president, finding a way to advocate for the positions and the beliefs that the Democratic Party embodies. And even as Democrats may be upset with the current status of Democratic leadership, the data reveals in and of itself that Democrats are getting 95% of their own party vote. The same exact data will tell us that Democrats are unpopular, especially relative to where they were 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, 16 years ago. Democrats are at a record low in terms of party affiliation, party respect and party approval. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they will lose in 2026, because Republicans are even in an even worse position amongst independents and a lot of swing voters nationwide, especially those who pay attention and will vote in November of 2026. Right. And this data from the Marist poll out of Marist University is really damning for the Republican Party nationwide and likely foretells an incredibly tumultuous next year and midterm cycle that will likely oust Republicans all across this nation.
All across
thank you guys so much
all across this nation. It's just something that's coming. I'm just telling you, I'm trying to get you all prepared. I'm trying to get you prepared because they're telling you that they do not like the Republican platform.
Is actually among Hispanics. He did pretty well with them in 2024 relative to how other Republicans normally do. But man, did he fall off an absolute cliff. And it's not that hard to figure out why. I mean, of course, you have the basic stuff like inflation being out of control, unemployment being out of control and rising further. So the economy is struggling colossally. But then you also have, I don't know, rounding up and attempting to deport innocent people who are here legally or who are immigrants and have been here for 30 years and have never committed a fucking crime. And so let's take a look. Here we have Harry Enton breaking down some numbers for us.
What are we seeing? You know, one of the big shifts in 2024 from 2020 was that shift toward. Look now at Donald Trump. From where we were a year ago on immigration, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are basically tied on the issue of immigration. And now on the issue of immigration, Latinos despise, hate Donald Trump, 38 points underwater. In their mind, he is doing something absolutely wrong when it comes to immigration.
And now you know why Democrats are 14 points up in the generic ballot for the midterms. And Democrats are leading by 33 points with independents? Because he is absolutely ruining the massive gains that he had made
What about the Latino vote overall? All right, how do Latinos feel about Donald Trump overall? Let's take a look here.
How did he squander a national lead like that? How did he squander a national lead like that?
On the margin, Mikey Show ran away.
That is like earth-shattering. That is absolutely earth-shattering, bro. It's unbelievable. I've never seen a swing like that in such a short time frame.
With this, Kamala Harris did win that vote, but by a small margin. Mikey Sherrill did 52 points better. How about in Virginia, Manassas Park? Look at that, a 22-point shift.
I should also point out, I actually think there was a bigger swing. There was a bigger swing in the Muslim Arab areas in New Jersey. The swing was even larger.
Towards Abigail Spanberger from how Kamala Harris did back in 2024. We saw huge Latino shifts in both New Jersey and Virginia. The idea of what happens to Donald Trump won't impact down ballot. If you're Republican, you believe that. That is fantasy land. What is happening to Donald Trump absolutely impacted.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Idiocracy. That's exactly right. They just haven't figured it out yet. They haven't figured out that Donald Trump was a con. And they just never accepted that he was a con.
What happened down ballot? Part of it is turnout, but part of it is persuasion. Latinos running away from Republicans, running to the Democrats, a big reversion of the mean. Latinos back in the Democratic camp in 2025 in a way they simply put we're not in 2024. And it's because of Donald John Trump.
Yeah, and let's be clear. It is literally not because of anything Democrats have done or said, right? This is just flat out, straight up negative polarization against the psycho who's destroying the country. And that's why I keep making the point to you guys. Imagine we also had Democrats who stood up and fought for the right things, right? Then that number would be even higher than this.
A lot can change between now and next November, the 2026. But if you start sort of extrapolating this and overlaying it on places like Texas.
Yes, we're going to be having lots of discussion about Texas. That redistricting may not work out the way that a lot of Texas Republicans and Donald Trump hope it would.
So the collapse among Republicans was so thorough that even if Republicans were to gerrymander everywhere, it could backfire and hurt them more. Because you take these areas and you're like, they wanted to gerrymander under the assumption that these gains that they had made with various minority communities that they would hold. And so they wanted to redraw some districts, be like, okay, this will be like a Trump +2 district. And it's like, well, now you have Democrats winning in Trump +25 districts, Trump +30 districts. A Trump +2 district, you're just handing the Democrats another seat. So imagine being so disgusting to people that like, even with you cheating to get a leg up, it makes you worse off. Imagine being that grotesque to the people of this country. All right, but we have some more examples here. We got some interviews. This was on MSNBC. Finally made the jump, bro. They finally made the name change. They were MSNBC. Now they're MS Now. You can see the little banner here. But let's listen to talking to a Latino voter who voted for Trump. Let's see what they're thinking now.
You told me that you voted for President Trump in 2024. Do you regret that decision? ¿Te arrepientes esa decisión?
Yes, 100%.
Listen, normally, you know how people are. People are stubborn. People try to justify and rationalize like literally every single thing they do. So for you to just get some...
Just like the MAGAs? Sort of like the MAGAs, right? Sort of like the MAGAs.
But you'd be like, oh, well, fucking, of course I regret it. Of course. He's the devil. That is such a sign of what's to come, right? Like, it's just such a sign of what's about to unfold. And it was an instant snap answer, too. Of course I... Damn, bro. Because usually somebody would be like, well, look, I mean, Kamala was also not my cup of tea, so what am I going to do? Like, I didn't like either choice, but I like this one for this reason and that reason and this reason. He doesn't even bother. Just right to, fucking, of course, fuck this guy, bro.
Yes, 100%.
Why do you regret that decision?
That's because it's nothing that's true. It's not true. You know, and the first time he says something, and now, example, in the Latino people, we see everything is different. And the first time.
So I got a question, Mike. Why would we come over there to the Republican Party? What do you have to offer over at the Republican Party? Seeing as how we're on the Democratic plantation, please tell us why we would come over to your side of the aisle. Seeing as how you have Republicans who like to release emails, young Republicans who talk about eating watermelon, Jews, fat people, women, misogynistic, racist things on their email. What would make us want to come over there? There's no reason for us to come over and be a Republican because you have nothing to offer. You have racist people in your party. There's racist people in both parties, but at least the Democrats know how to keep their racism in their house. They don't have them on emails where they can get caught saying it. They don't have a president who says that Mexicans are ruining the blood of the country. They don't have presidents who say that kind of stuff. So what exactly would change us and make us come over to your side of the aisle instead of staying on the plantation? Just dumb.
Fine example, he say he go to catch the delincuentes. Criminals, yeah. And right now, he don't follow to criminals.
I know there's a language barrier here, but I get exactly what homie's saying. He's like, what happened, bro? I was under the impression you were only going to go after the violent criminals and deport them. Why are you going after total?
Because they lied to you all. They lied. The Donald Trump clown car lied to them. He lied to the people, and all of the goofies ate it up. And now the real people, the people that were just under the follow the crowd, the sheep that followed the crowd, now they're not under the spell anymore. The maggots are still under the spell, but the regular people are not under the spell. The regular people have come out from under the spell, and now they see Donald Trump for what he is. Now they see the Republican Party for what it is, that they don't like blacks and browns. So they're moving away from those crowds. And regular, normal, everyday, average white people who are nice white people are seeing the craziness in the Republican Party. So that's why they're moving away from the Republican Party. That's why.
Totally innocent people. In fact, it is the exact opposite, guys. Not many people know this. Not many people have really internalized what's happening here. But they stopped going after the hardened.
Oh, I listen to Charlie Kirk. I listen to Nick Fuentes. I listen to all of them. I listen to those people too. They make sense to a certain degree. They make their racism known. They make the fact that they don't want black and brown people in their party. They make it be known. What do you mean? I listen to them all the time. Anybody who comes over to this channel knows that I listen to them all the time. Snout Crowder. I listen to Crowder. I listen to Ben Shapiro. I listen to Nick Fuentes. I had two gropers come over here and talk to me on my panel. So I talk to them all the time. So they don't hide it. So why would a black person go over to that party when they're not wanted over in that party? Just wild. You don't make a case for black people to be over there. So why you mad at me? Because we Democrats. That's wild. I don't need a job. I'm retired.
Criminals to go after innocent people on purpose. Let me repeat that. They stopped going after the real criminals to go after innocent people on purpose. It was Stephen Miller who said, let's get rid of the various wings of the agencies that are specifically going after the human traffickers, that are specifically going after the cartels, that are specifically going after the violent criminals. It takes an extra level of investigation and research to try to figure out who to deport, right? Stephen Miller said, fuck that. Don't do that. In fact, we're going to disband a lot of these groups that are doing that hard work. And we're going to say, hey, ICE agents, hop in your Tahoe and go to the local Home Depot and start rounding up the day laborers. And that's literally what they did. And so, yeah, they're not going after criminals. Now, I will say, not to rub it in any way, shape, or form here, but we got to spit facts. The fact of the matter is, Trump was giving signs that he wasn't just going to go after criminals, right? When they're holding up mass deportation signs at the RNC, you cannot do mass deportations without going after non-criminals because there just aren't that many criminal undocumented immigrants in the country. You'd blow through them in a week, right? So if you're holding mass deportation signs and Trump talks about mass deportations, he was always going to go after innocent people. He was always going to go after people who should still be in this country. The other thing is, when he was on the debate stage, remember, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the pets. Well, guys, what was he referring to when he said that? He was talking about legal Haitian immigrants in the Midwest. So, again, that's a sign I'm going to also go after legal immigrants. He literally, I mean, he got...
That's the thing. People People want a deportation. They just didn't want it the way your clown car president did it. That's the whole point. They wanted it done how Obama did it. They wanted it done the way Biden did it. They didn't want it done the way your shitty ass president did it. That's all. It's nothing different. Obama deported more people. We get all that. I get all that. But they didn't want it done like your president did it. That's all. Alligator Alcatraz. That's wild that you thought that nobody would turn against you. See, here's the thing. It's not It's not only Hispanics that are turning away. It's independents that are turning away. And some blacks are turning away. But mostly us black women, we know what Donald Trump is. We definitely made the right choice. We can sense a shitty human being a mile away. So this is where we're at. The Democrats are not doing a thing. The Democrats are not doing a thing. And they're beating the Republicans hands down. Hands down. You all keep bringing up all of these cultural things. That's the problem. You bring up the cultural things and nobody cares about the cultural things. People care about bread and butter issues. Stop talking about the gays. Stop talking about deportation. Stop talking about the blacks. Stop talking about KKK and start talking about household bread and butter issues. And maybe your party will see some comeback. But for now, people don't want to hear about you talking about deporting people. People don't want to hear about you hating blacks or Jews or gays or anything else. Nobody wants to hear about any of that. They want to hear about how you're going to make life more manageable. And your president has been doing everything other than taking care of America first. And since he decided that America was not going to go first, he's reaping what he sowed. And since you all want to stand behind him, you stand behind him. But you're going to lose in 2026 because of it.
Got like the overwhelming majority of the Cuban vote. Cubans vote very right wing because many of them were fleeing from communism and Castro.
Yeah. And what's right for the Democratic Party is what's right for the country. You all don't want to do what's right for the country. You want to do what's right for what's inside your house. You want us all to be Catholic nationalists. You all want us not to have access to abortion. You all want us to not do X, Y, and Z. You all don't want to have gays in the military. You all don't want to have be reminded of slavery. You all don't want to have. You hate. That's the problem. You hate. And nobody wants to deal with hate all the time. Why do you think the country is failing? You all seem to think the country is winning. The country is not winning. This president is failing. As soon as y'all get on board and figure out how to make your president successful, the better it will be. You raging against Democrats is not helping anything. Every time we turn around, libertad. No, you need to start figuring out how to make the country better. How to make your president work for everybody, not just the Republicans. The country is falling apart. Yeah, he ain't trying to do jack shit except rob and marauder the president. Crazy. If you don't think that. You're crazy if you think this president is not trying to line his pockets. You're crazy. And that's the problem. You deserve to lose the White House. You all deserve to lose the houses. You deserve to lose the Senate. Because that's all you guys have is hate. That's all you have is hate. You hate the gays, the trans, the browns, the immigrants, the people who have abortions. You hate. You have nothing to stand on. Your party has nothing to stand on. That's why it's failing. That's why this party is failing. That's why this country is failing. Because we have a clown car for the president.
And then
that's all y'all do is hate. You hate the gays, the trans, the gays, the trans, the immigrants, the Muslims, my dichotomy, black people, brown people. You hate. You don't stand for nothing. I can tell you right now 4 things that the Democrats stand for. They stand for veterans, homeless, poor people, disabled. They stand for these 4 things to help people get better. You guys don't do that. You guys do. That's all you guys do is hate, hate, hate. That's all. We hate the gays. We hate the trans. We hate the browns. We hate the immigrants. We hate the Muslims. That's all y'all do is hate. That's all y'all do is hate. That's why this is failing. That's all that's all that happens when your party is in power. You never think of the country. You only think of trying to win through culture wars. You never try to run. Y'all don't know how to govern. The Republicans don't know how to govern a country.
The Cubans voted for them, voted for Trump, and then he started mass deporting now the Cubans. So
your mother is an ape. She's fucking an ape.
I mean, the signs were there, right? The signs were there, and you were warned. But, I mean, Trump he's a con artist, and a con artist does his con man bullshit and can convince you he's with you even when...
No, I think we got it accurately. Well, we got it accurately over here. We're not over here talking about we don't like gays, trans, immigrants. We're not over here saying that. You all are over there saying that. You all are over there saying that. We're not over here saying that. We're over here saying that we want to include people in our circle. You're the ones that are over there saying we don't want you Mexicans in our country. We don't want you Latinos in our country. We don't want you gays around us. We don't want you trans around us. You're the ones who say those things. That's your party that has the hate. Face it. And you have a shit show of a president and you have a shit show of a party. And that's why you're going to lose. And that's why you deserve to lose.
He's not, right? That's the other thing. He always contradicts himself. But like, he says everything on any given issue, but what ends up happening is people say, oh, he means the one that I want him to mean. He doesn't mean the other thing he said that I don't agree with. This is how it works.
He go to specific to Latino people. Why Latino people? Because in the last Saturday, example, behind to me, I see the white people, the black people, and some people, Indian people, and Chinese people, and me. The DHS come specific to me.
So they're coming after him. And by the way, the Supreme Court said, yeah, go ahead. You can racially profile when it comes to immigration enforcement, of course. They legalized racial profiling on some nonchalant whim type shit.
And catch to me. Not other people. Because don't care to other people. Specific Latino people.
So what's going on here? I mean, I think it's very straightforward. He understands what's happening. It's happened to him personally. I'm sure it's happened to other people that he knows and loves or his friends. And people are not stupid. There's been such a barrage of these stories of the assault on our civil liberties and justice that, you know, you can't not see it. You can't. I mean, remember, there was somebody with an autism awareness tattoo that was sent to the CCOT concentration camp, and they lied and said this is a gang tattoo. The guy literally had a tattoo, an autism awareness tattoo, for his brother who's autistic, who he helped raise. They lied and said it was a gang tattoo. I mean, that's disgusting. How about the guy, the gay?
That's where you got to you got to be listening, y'all. You retards got to put your ears on. You really do. You got to put your ears on. If you haven't heard, the Latinos have swung away from the Republicans in droves, in mass. And the what is it? The independents, yeah. The independents have swung away from you guys in mass. You really need to put your thinking caps on. You guys really do need to put your thinking caps on. You do. You just do. You got to put your thinking caps on. I can't help it. I can't help it. Your president had a mandate. Your president had a mandate, and he blew the mandate. This is how just shitty your president is. He had a mandate and he blew the mandate. That's wild. That's the wildest shit ever. Blew the mandate.
a Venezuelan hairdresser. He had a mom and dad tattoo. And ICE said, those are gang tattoos, and we're also going to send you to the concentration camp. This is like nightmare, Nazi German type stuff here that we're talking about. They sent 288 people to that concentration camp, and 90% of them had no criminal record whatsoever.
Yes, that's what the Republicans did. That's what the Republicans signed up for. They let those Hispanic people go to those foreign countries, kicking them out. And they think the Hispanics are on their side? They think they're on their side? They keep forgetting. We got half the white people, we got damn near all the Hispanic people, and we got damn near all the black people. It's going to be over for that party. It's just going to be over for that party because the Republicans have nothing to offer to the regular, ordinary person.
We had an American from Puerto Rico who was a veteran and he was arrested. We have U.S. Marshals who have gotten arrested. Again, why do you think? Because they have brown skin. An American citizen who spoke Mayan was arrested and held for a week. Even the mom even showed up and said, here's his social security card. Here's his birth certificate. Here are all of his papers. And they said, well, we can't release him now. What? They held him for a fucking week, guys, for a week. I mean, this is just crazy. And that's to say nothing of, they deported a 4-year-old American citizen with cancer. They arrested a woman immediately after she gave birth when she was in her fucking hospital bed. We're dealing with demons. But it looks like people have woken up across this country.
Yes, they have woken up across the country. It is what it is. I can't help it. The president had a mandate. He had a mandate, y'all. He had a mandate, and he lost the mandate. How in the hell does a president lose a mandate this bad? How does a president lose a mandate this bad? Wild. A mandate. And every person in the chat knows that I'm telling the truth. Trump had a mandate and he lost the mandate just this bad and just this quickly. They don't seem to think that the Epstein files are as bad as they are. They don't think they're as bad as they are.
They really have. And, there's no hiding this level of depravity. And the other thing that I should point out is, as terrible and as bad as Trump is, understand.
Why in the hell is you here, John Stevens? Why do you have your ass here? Yes, please go somewhere else. You don't like listening to the truth? You don't like listening to the truth. Liar, liar, dumbass. But we just gonna be laughing because your president is a joke. And we're just telling you ahead of time that he's a joke.
They basically gave him Lego blocks and said, go play in the corner, bitch. We're done with you. We're not going to babysit you anymore. Why do you think he was redoing the Lincoln bathroom? Why do you think?
Yes, that's exactly what. They told him they not fucking with him no more. Donald Trump is through.
He's knocking down the east wing of the White House and building the ballroom. This was a coordinated effort and a plan from the shadow presidents to get him out of their way. And so Stephen Miller, the Jewish Nazi, is now running immigration policy completely. He literally raided a South Korean factory that was being built here with South Korean legal workers, and he had them fucking kicked out of the country. And even Trump was like, I don't support that. I was never for that. Stephen Miller literally vetoed Trump. He vetoed Trump and did whatever the fuck he wanted to do. What about Russ Vought? Russ Vought and Elon Musk, these are the people who are controlling domestic economic policy. They're the ones slashing government to the bone. They're the ones who fired 83,000 veterans. They're the ones who cut pediatric cancer research and Meals on Wheels. They are actually controlling economic policy in a way that Trump isn't, right? And Marco Rubio, they gave him South America. Hey, you do whatever the fuck you want with South America. So he's murdering random fishermen. And he's going to try to do regime change in Venezuela because this is what the Cuban right has always wanted to do. So the neocons are neoconning. The imperialists are imperialisting, right? That's what's happening right in front of our eyes. And I think people are finally starting to wake up here to the horror show that we're witnessing. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like it.
To the horror show that we are witnessing. It's nothing but a horror show. Every day of the week, we run into a shit show with this presidency. Morons are moroning. You're right about that. All at the damn White House. So we still got to deal with you all. We still got to deal with you people at the White House. We still got to deal with the morons, the rejects, the retards. We got to deal with all of that. Even that badly built, bleach blonde Marjorie Taylor Greene figured it out. Even she figured it out. She figured it out that this party has a shit show going on, and she even walked away. She even trying to walk away. So I'm just gonna go ahead with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm just gonna roll with her because she's been on the inside, so she knows what the hell is going on. She knows that this is a shit show. She knows this is what's going on, and so we gonna roll with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Whatever she do, that's what we gonna roll with. Cause she came up out of that MAGA bubble. So she came up out of that bubble and said, "No, this ain't the way to go. I can't be going with the shit show. I can't be going with this garbage." She said, I can't roll with no pedo." But you notice people in here caping for the pedo. We have this content every night. Please like, share, subscribe. We will be back tomorrow. Who knows what we will be back tomorrow to talk about? Who knows what we will be back tomorrow to talk about? Let's hope we get some of those Epstein files. I definitely want to see some more Epstein files because I believe Trump is in them. I believe he's in them, and I believe he has something to show us. He wouldn't be fighting so hard if he wasn't in the files. I'm going to believe that to my heart's content. He would not be fighting so hard not to be in the files if he was not in the files. And he's probably in the files, and it's probably something that we never expected to happen. And I'm still curious. Who is Bubba? Who is Bubba, and who was it who has the file? Because you do know that these Epstein files are videotapes and audio tapes. You do know that, right? That these are videotapes and audio tapes? Yes. We're definitely waiting for those to drop. We just need to hear more. Let's hope your president didn't pull a fast one like he tried to do in February and lied to the American public by presenting bullshit binders to some goofy influencers to try to throw us off the trail. Let's hope your president hasn't pulled a fast one like he normally likes to do. And hopefully we can get the truth. Hopefully the victims can get their justice. Hopefully everybody can get exactly what they're waiting to see. Let's hope that is the case. Everybody's hoping that's the case. And hopefully your president is on board like he's supposed to be. Okay? But we never know. Don't be a hater. Hi, Mike. Goodbye, Mike. Don't be a hater. Your president is the loser. But that's okay. I have sympathy for you guys. I have sympathy because you have a loser for a president. I have sympathy. We'll be back tomorrow. We never know what we're going to come up with tomorrow. We never know what we're going to see tomorrow.